The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting an unnatural glow over the empty aisles of the Quick Mart. Anna tapped her fingers against the counter, staring at the security screens. Nothing moved outside, just the lonely parking lot, the flickering street lamp, and the endless stretch of road leading into the dark. It was 2:13 a.m. The store should be silent. But not this silent. No wind, no passing cars, no humming from the coolers in the back. Anna frowned, rubbing her arms. The air inside felt colder than usual. Then the doorbell chimed. Anna looked up. 2 men walked in. One was tall, lanky, wearing a hooded jacket, his face partially obscured. The other was shorter, heavier, with deep-set eyes that didn't blink much. They didn't pick up a basket, didn't browse, didn't speak. The tall man walked straight to the drinks section. The shorter one stood near the counter, staring at the gum rack, but not really looking at it. Anna pretended to check her phone, using the reflection in the screen to watch them. Then she noticed something odd. The security camera feed behind her flickered. For a brief moment, just a fraction of a second. There was a third figure standing in the aisle, but there were only 2 men in the store. Anna turned quickly. Nothing. The aisles were empty. Her throat tightened. She reached for the emergency button under the counter, her fingers hovering just above it. The taller man grabbed a bottle of soda, but he wasn't looking at it. His head was slightly tilted, listening. The shorter man finally spoke. His voice was wrong. Too deep, too slow. "You hear it too, don't you?" Anna stiffened. "Hear what?" The shorter man smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "The footsteps." Anna's blood ran cold. She glanced at the security monitor again. The screen glitched. The third figure appeared again, this time closer to the counter. Anna turned sharply. No one was there. The taller man sighed, setting his soda on the counter. "You need to leave, now." Anna forced a chuckle. "I work here. I'm not going anywhere." The shorter man's eyes darkened. "Then you should know, people who work this shift don't last long." Anna tried to steady her breathing. This was a prank, a weird, messed up prank. She reached under the counter, fingers gripping the emergency phone. Then, thud. Something slammed against the storage room door. The noise echoed through the store. Anna jumped, dropping the phone. The security feed flickered violently. The door at the back shuddered as if something was hitting it from the other side. Then, the glass front doors slammed shut on their own. Locked. She was trapped inside. The store hummed with an unnatural silence, save for the erratic flickering of the security feed. Anna's chest tightened. She backed away from the counter, her pulse hammering against her ribs. The shorter man exhaled sharply. "You shouldn't have stayed." Anna's breath hitched. What do you mean?" The security monitors glitched again. The third figure moved closer, standing just behind her, but there was no one there. Then the radio crackled. A voice, distorted and broken, whispered through the speakers. "Anna." Her stomach plummeted. Anna spun around. Nothing. She turned back to the security screen, her breath coming in sharp gasps. The third figure was gone. The static faded, leaving behind a low, humming sound, like something was breathing through the speakers. Then she saw it. A bloody handprint. It wasn't on the monitor, it was on the counter, right in front of her. Anna let out a strangled gasp, stepping back so fast she nearly tripped over her own feet. The 2 men watched her, their expressions unreadable. "What do you want?" she whispered. The shorter man took a step forward, voice flat. "It's not us you should be afraid of." The storage room door creaked open. Anna's breath stopped. She hadn't touched it. From within, the dim emergency light flickered over rows of shelves and stacks of old inventory. And in the center of the floor, a pile of uniforms. Quick Mart uniforms, all stained with blood. Anna's mind spun. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. She took a slow step forward, her fingers tightening around the edge of the counter. Something crunched beneath her foot. She looked down. A clipboard lay on the ground, covered in dust. The paper attached was yellowed, old, but the handwriting was clear. Quick Mart employee termination list. Her name was at the bottom. Next to it, the words, "Last seen, 2:14 a.m." The clock on the register ticked over to 2:14. Anna felt the air shift. The store no longer felt real. The shelves seemed further away, the lighting dimmer. Her limbs felt heavier, as if something was pulling her backward. The shorter man shook his head. "You don't get it yet, do you?" Anna swallowed, her throat dry as dust. "Get what?" The taller man pointed to the monitor. Anna forced herself to look. The camera feed from the front of the store was playing back on a loop. She saw herself standing at the counter. She saw the two men walking in, and then she saw herself get pulled into the storage room, but she was still standing here, right? Anna's vision blurred. Her fingers dug into the edge of the counter, trying to ground herself. This wasn't possible. She was standing here, watching the screen, but she had also just seen herself, being dragged into the storage room. The two men watched her, their expressions unreadable. The shorter one sighed. "It happens every night." Anna blinked. "What?" The taller man nodded toward the clipboard on the floor. "That list? It's not a record of firings. It's a list of disappearances. Employees who worked this shift. None of them ever made it to morning." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She turned to the storage room, the door still slightly ajar. A void of blackness stretched beyond the flickering light. She had to get out of here. She turned to the front doors, still locked. The shorter man stepped back, lifting his hands. "If you want to live, don't go in there. Don't look." Anna's hands shook. "Then why the hell did the door open by itself?" The taller man sighed. "It's hungry." Anna took a step back, her body trembling. No, this is some kind of sick joke. I don't know who you are, but..." The security screen glitched again. The footage replayed. Anna standing at the counter, the two men entering. The flickering static. And then, the storage room door opening. But this time, she saw something she hadn't before. A figure, tall, shadowed, its limbs wrong, too long, too thin. It reached forward, emerging from the darkness of the storage room. Anna's heart stopped. It wasn't human. The storage door slammed open wider. A freezing wind rushed out, sending papers flying off the counter. The fluorescent lights above buzzed violently, flickering in and out. Anna's body refused to move. Her feet felt rooted to the floor. The shadow in the storage room lurched forward. "Run!" Anna turned, sprinting toward the emergency exit. She hit the handle, locked. The air behind her grew cold. Anna gasped for breath, her hands banging against the emergency door. "Please, no! Let me out!" The taller man moved fast, grabbing her wrist. His grip was ice cold, not human. "You need to wake up, Anna." His voice was urgent, but it sounded distant, like an echo. Her head spun, the room warped around her, shelves stretching impossibly high, the store tilting at an unnatural angle. The security screen flickered, the footage looped again. Only this time, she wasn't in it anymore. Everything stopped, the lights cut out, the alarms silenced, the doors unlocked. Anna stumbled forward and found herself standing behind the counter. The store was normal again. She looked at the clock. 1:42 a.m. The register beeped, the front door chimed. Two men walked in. Anna's stomach dropped. The shorter one sighed. "You don't remember, do you?" The taller one simply shook his head. "It's happening again." Anna opened her mouth to scream. But she had done this before, and she would do it again. Anna's vision swam. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. Her hands trembled as she touched the counter. It was solid. The screen in front of her flickered again, but now she saw something new. The past versions of herself. A dozen Annas, all stuck in the same cycle. Some looked horrified, others hopeless, and a few were already lifeless. She gasped and stumbled back. I can't be here. I need to get out." The shorter man nodded slowly. "Then remember." The store warped again. The shelves twisted. The products melted into shadows. The security feed flickered violently. The figure from the storage room was moving closer. Anna felt the pressure against her skull, like something was forcing its way inside her head. "Who are you?" she screamed, clutching at her temples. The taller man frowned. His form flickered. "You already know." The storage room door burst open, not into darkness, but into a vision. Anna saw herself, months ago. She wasn't just an employee here, she was the last one to try escaping. And she had failed. Tears burned at Anna's eyes. Her own reflection stared back at her from the security screen. A voice, her own voice but distorted, whispered, "You never left." Anna turned to the two men, her breath shallow. "I died here, didn't I?" The shorter man exhaled deeply, looking almost tired. "Not exactly. You never left because it won't let you. The store needs someone to keep it running." The taller man spoke softly. "You're part of it now." Anna's breath caught. "No!" She refused to accept it. She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy flashlight, and hurled it at the glass door. The impact shattered the illusion. The store screamed. The walls rippled, the lights bursting one by one. Anna saw them, the faces of every past employee, all staring at her, trapped, their mouths open in silent horror. She ran. The front door, open now, was right there. She lunged for it, her hands outstretched. She felt the cold air just beyond the threshold. Then, a hand clamped around her wrist. Anna turned. The shadowed figure from the storage room stood behind her. Its grip tightened, its fingers digging into her skin. "You don't get to leave," it whispered in a voice made of thousands of voices. Anna screamed. She pulled against its grip, but her body felt like it was fading. She looked to the two men. The shorter one looked at her with pity. "Either you take someone's place, or you stay forever." The realization hit her like a truck. She needed to bring in someone new. Anna stopped struggling. Her breath steadied. The figure released her, stepping back into the storage room. The store repaired itself. The lights returned to normal. The broken glass disappeared. The air no longer felt suffocating. Anna looked at the clipboard behind the counter. A fresh line had been added beneath her name. "New position available. Apply now." The front door chimed. A young man walked in, looking around, confused. "Hey, is this place hiring?" Anna smiled. "Yeah," she said. "We could really use some new help. I've been a truck driver for nearly 15 years, and in 2017, I had an experience that still haunts me. That night, I was hauling a shipment across the Mojave Desert, heading for Arizona. I don't even remember what I was delivering, maybe appliances, but that detail became insignificant compared to what happened next. The road was completely empty, stretching endlessly into the black void ahead. My truck's headlights were dim, too dim. Without other vehicles to illuminate the road, I found myself straining my eyes every few minutes, trying to distinguish asphalt from abyss. A rational person might have pulled over and waited for dawn, but I wasn't willing to waste precious time. I needed the money. Badly. So I kept driving. Then something appeared in the distance. At first, it was just a shadow, a vague obstruction in the distance. But as I got closer, my blood ran cold. And a car, a red Ford Fusion. Parked dead center on the double yellow line, its hazard lights flashed eerily in the silence. But what unsettled me more was that the passenger door was wide open, as if someone had left in a hurry. I barely managed to stop the semi a foot away from impact. For a moment, I sat there, gripping the wheel, staring. The road was empty. There was no movement inside the car, no driver, no sign of life. The air was still. Too still. I should have kept going. Instead, I got out. The night was unnervingly silent. No wind, no insects, no sound. Only the rhythmic of the hazard lights. I moved closer, inspecting the vehicle. It was practically new, not the kind of car you'd expect to be abandoned in the middle of a desolate highway. Peering inside, I saw nothing. The front seats, empty. The back, also empty. No blood, no broken glass, no sign of a struggle. Just a set of keys still in the ignition. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine. Somebody had been here recently, and yet they were gone. But why? Against my better judgment, I walked around to the trunk. I grabbed the keys from the ignition and tried to open it. Locked. I frowned, unlocked it manually. Still, it wouldn't budge, as if something inside was pressing against it. The unease in my gut turned into something heavier. I tried another way. Climbing into the back seat, I reached through to the trunk, my fingers brushing against something thick and plastic. Garbage bags, 3 of them. a rope tied around the trunk latch. My stomach clenched. Then, a gunshot split the night. The sound shattered the eerie silence, so loud my ears rang. I jerked up, my head smashing against the car's ceiling. A voice echoed from the distance, rough, urgent, and getting closer. "Hey!" My instinct screamed, "Run." I threw the keys onto the front seat and bolted for my truck. Footsteps, pounding against the asphalt, sonorous. Standing by the open trunk of the car, a short, husky man. Red hair, overalls, shin-high boots. In his left hand, he clutched a small, rusted shovel. In his right hand, a hunting rifle, still smoking. For a moment, we locked eyes. His expression wasn't what I expected. Not anger, not rage, just worry. Then, he dropped the shovel and started waving. "Wait! Wait! Stop!" No. Hell no. I floored it. I glanced in the mirror. For a few seconds, he ran after my truck. Then, suddenly, he turned, sprinting back toward the Ford Fusion. Whatever was in that trunk, he needed it hidden, and I had almost seen it. That's when I saw it. Headlights. In the distance, moving fast, coming right for me. The red Ford Fusion barreling down the highway behind me. I fumbled for my phone. 911, the dispatcher answered. I spoke fast, my words frantic. The car got closer. Then, it swerved next to me. For the first time, I saw the driver up close, the same red-haired man. His face was twisted in panic. His mouth moved, shouting something I couldn't hear, over the roar of the engines. Then, he slammed on the brakes. I almost crashed into him. And that's when red and blue lights flashed ahead. The moment the police lights appeared, the Ford swerved hard, veering off the road into the vast desert. I slowed, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Moments later, a cop pulled up beside me. I jumped out, words tumbling over themselves. I explained everything, the car, the trunk, the gunshots. He just nodded, didn't chase the guy, didn't even seem concerned. "Don't worry, we'll check it out," he said. Then he sent me on my way. I waited for days for a callback, for news, for anything. It never came. I told my buddies the story 100 times. Each time, they said the same thing. That guy was hiding bodies, but the bags were too small for that. The shovel, too small for digging graves. So, what was he burying, and why? Why was he so desperate for me not to see? I tell myself it was something harmless, an animal, maybe roadkill, maybe something worse. I'll never know. But one thing is certain. I'll never feel comfortable driving through the desert at night again. The end.